He's a busy man and really busy today. Albert Breer, MMQB.com, NFL insider, who joins us now. Good morning, Albert. What trade would shock you today?
I would be pretty surprised if Arizona moved any of its big pieces. I don't think it's going to be worth their while to move Larry Fitzgerald, and I think Larry would actually have to ask them for that to happen. So I don't think that's going to happen. And the two most valuable pieces to other teams on the roster are Patrick Peterson, and they may have actually gotten more calls on Chandler Jones over the last few days than they have on Peterson. And so, those two names have circulated out there a little bit. I would be surprised if either of them are moved. And if they are moved, it would be, at a very, very hefty price. And so, those are the two biggest names I've heard that the teams are making calls on. And the one that would shock me, I guess, then would be either of those big names moving.
Most likely to be traded today is who?
It's a good question. I'm going to go. I go with potentially. God, this is tough. Carl Joseph from the Raiders. Who the asking price has been too high initially. It was a third-round pick. I think that's come down. He's a former first-round pick, so there are going to be some teams out there that like him because of the way they felt about him 3 years ago. And so he would be a name I could see potentially moving. Outside of that, I mean, we can go through all the names. I'm sure you've already heard. Clinton Dix is available, the Packers safety. Laquan Treadwell, the Vikings receiver, has been out there. As a name that's been discussed. Pierre Garcon and Jimmy Ward with the Niners. I mean, there are some names you've heard of that are being circulated out there. I don't know. I know there are teams that are looking to make big swings. I just don't know if the match between suitor and seller with some of those big names are out there.
Anybody interested in Jameis Winston? Is Tampa interested in moving Jameis Winston?
I don't think that there's any interest in Jameis Winston. This is a unique year in that sense, Dan, and that there isn't really a team out there that's up the creek at the quarterback position, unless that's where you consider Denver or the Giants right now. And I don't think either of those teams are out there looking for someone like Jameis. I certainly think the Bucs would be open to moving Jameis. Maybe more so than some of the other big names in their roster. Deshaun Jackson's another guy who's elicited some phone calls. But I just don't think that there's a team out there right now that's willing to bring in Jameis, given all the strings attached and the money that he's making.
We're talking to Albert Breer, the insider for MMQB.com. Yeah, trying to figure this out of what happens. And, we have teams, even though we don't use the word tanking in the NFL, it feels like some teams are tanking. Would you say that's fair assessment of, are the Giants tanking, Raiders tanking? Who else do you throw in there that we might use that word?
I mean, I think the Giants and Raiders, it's fair to say to some degree they are, just in that I think they're being honest with themselves about where their rosters are. And part of the reason why the Raiders trade Khalil Mack and trade Amari Cooper is because John Gruden doesn't think they're going to be any good for another couple of years. And so, he was honest with himself about that. I asked the question, are those guys still going to be around when we're getting good? And the answer was no. The Giants hadn't been honest with themselves about their roster, which is why they drafted a running back second overall and go and overspend for a left tackle. I think now they are being honest with themselves, and that makes them sellers. So you are going to see names like Janoris Jenkins and Landon Collins out there over the next 12 hours or so. And I think outside of those two, I think one of the things that prevents, say a Tampa or an Arizona from really, being in that category where you say they're tanking is that there are guys there whose jobs are on the line. Steve Keim is a guy in Arizona who I think did a really, really good job out of the box when he became GM about 6 or 7 years ago. Has been in a little bit of a slump lately. And so, is he going to be motivated to sell off pieces now based on the fact that he might be fighting for his job and the roster has to show promise over the last half of the season? The other one, Tampa, and I think if you were looking at Tampa rationally, you'd say, maybe they'd be a seller. The problem is that Jason Light and Dirk Cutter are fighting for their jobs. And so, I think there are a couple of teams that are legitimately stripping down, and Oakland and the Giants would be in that category. But there are other teams you look at and you say they're bad, they should be selling, where there are GMs or coaches or both fighting for their jobs. And so, that would make them a little less motivated to aggressively sell off pieces, again, before 4 o'clock today.
Is Le'Veon Bell showing up at 4:01?
I don't know if it'll be 4:01, but I think it'll be soon thereafter. We're getting to the point now where he's going to have to. He needs those 6 games towards free agency. They're going to have to work out some of the details of how his reentry to the program is going to happen, and there's going to be some awkwardness there based on how, from a communication standpoint, he throws some of his teammates out over the last 2 months. But I certainly think, the money aside, this isn't the worst scenario for Le'Veon Bell now. The concern for him and missing all of this, the concern for him and coming back was putting more mileage on his body. Now that James Conner's proven himself, it stands to reason that Pittsburgh's going to use the 2 of them in a platoon, which will, at least on paper, help him keep healthy ahead of free agency. And so, I think he's walking back into a good scenario if he can work out some of that awkwardness with some of his teammates and coaches.
I'll leave you with this. I already found the Browns' new head coach.
Who is that?
Mike McCarthy.
It's not a bad name. It really isn't. I mean, if things go a certain way with the Packers and they don't make the playoffs, this is the point where they made a change the last time. If you remember, Ted Thompson got hired in 2005. He kept Mike Sherman on board for a year and then moved on and hired Mike McCarthy. They've got a first-year GM and Brian Gutekunst there now who could do the same sort of thing after this year. And Mike McCarthy would be the kind of hire that would sort of, I guess, take the circus out of Cleveland, which is sort of what they need. So that name makes sense. I'll give you a name to watch, Dan, okay?
All right.
And that's Iowa State coach Matt Campbell. Just file that one away. I know Lincoln Riley's name's been out there. I think that there will be interest from the Browns in Lincoln Riley. Matt Campbell, who's a Northeast Ohio native, might be a more realistic name for him. A guy who's proven it as a good program builder. If he can put an NFL-ready staff together, I think he could wind up being the tech, in large part because he's very, very well thought of in the scouting circles that John Dorsey runs in.
What else was he up for? I had an NFL scout who told me about, he's the next, he would be a guy. This a while ago. What was it? Maybe Ohio State?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Because I know his name came up.
If Urban Meyer were to walk away from Ohio
that's
State,
it.
I think he would be in the top of the list.
That's it. Albert, thank you. I know you have a busy day. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks, Dan.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.